So guys, that was a great lesson. And it's like, that sounds awful. It sounds awful.
Exactly. The Human Torch was denied a bank loan.
Although that was probably the most pressure I've ever felt,
Yeah.
it's probably the best I've ever played.
Well, there's
Which was
something in
nice.
that. Hi guys, and welcome back to Beats and Best Friends. This is episode 2.
Hello.
How are we doing?
Good, mate. Really good. I mean, I quite like it that we're doing this in sort of like real time now.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like before with the first season, we would sort of record months in advance
Yeah.
and then sort of trickle feed them as we went on. Whereas now we're doing them and we're going to release this next week. Well, in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's nice because then you don't feel like you're talking about stuff and it's like been and gone for months,
Yeah.
and you're like, this is no relevance anymore at all. So should we start with a bit of a catch up? Because
Yeah, let's do it.
today we're going to be talking about gear setups and home studios and creating content for Behind the Beat and all that stuff. But we like to start with a little catch up. So,
Yeah.
well, what have you been up to?
Well, I've just finished the first leg of the European tour for Holly Johnson.
Yeah.
So Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
So where have you gone so far?
So we did Amsterdam, Den Haag, and Brussels. So we've done 3.
Nice.
But it's quite nice with Holly because we do a show. Well, we have a travel day, then we do a show, then we have the day off, then we do a show. So really, we're away for a week and a half for about sort of 3 or 4 shows, which is quite nice.
What about for people who don't know what a travel day is?
So a travel day is essentially you're paid to travel to a city or to a place on tour. So we'll have a travel day, so we get to the venue a day before, which is really lovely. And obviously not a lot of artists can afford to do that, but it just means that we're not flying in the morning at 12 o'clock, and then you've got the show in the evening. So we will travel the day before, so the next day we do the show.
That's always nice.
This is
You feel
nice.
fresh. That's awesome. And what's been the highlight so far?
I think the highlight was in Brussels, they live streamed the whole show.
Yeah.
And it was, the venue was incredible. I think it was 4,000 people. And
Nice.
it was sold out.
Nice.
So that was obviously an amazing atmosphere. And it's nice because obviously it's Holly's tour. They're all there to see him. It's not like we're a support act or anything.
No, you're
It's
the
like
main event.
We're the main event. And they have a proper recording studio in the venue.
Oh, cool.
So the live stream gets mixed in a studio as we're playing.
Nice.
And they've got like these 4K cameras, and there's like 10 of them. I think the guy said they're about 10 grand each per camera. So I've just got that now
Nice.
as a reference. I can use it for promo, and also it's just nice to watch it back, and it sounds and looks amazing. And actually, although that was probably the most pressure I've ever felt, it's probably the best I've ever played.
Well, there's
which
something
was
in
nice.
that. Is it available for public use?
Yes.
So we can link it?
We can put the link in the show notes.
Check it out.
There we go.
Nice. And anything has not gone well? Anything that sort of derailed you or it?
I don't think so.
Well, that's not bad, is it?
Honestly, I feel the band are so good,
Yeah.
and we've had such a family sort of mentality this whole tour that it's just been delicious. Like, it's just really lovely hotels, beautiful venues. The fans are amazing. The food's good. It's honestly, I'm just so excited. I actually got a little bit emotional coming back from the first leg because Claire's been away in America for 2 weeks for her job, and she was kind of she saw some family when she was out there as well, and she came back and she got a little bit sort of emotional. She's like, I'm leaving my family in America and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was coming back and I was just having such a good time and loving the tour so much that I was like, it was almost like a bit of a come down.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like coming back to reality, and then I got back and sort of, went straight back into teaching, and I love the teaching, I really do. But when, you're in the mix of the tour and then you kind of come back to reality, it was a little bit of a like, oh, okay. Yeah. But then we go back next week on tour, so
exactly. It's not long before you're going to be feeling like that again. And what's left on the tour in terms of places?
So this is the big run now. So we do all the UK stuff. So we do Brighton, Glasgow, Liverpool twice, Newcastle, Birmingham, London. So it's all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Then we go off to, I think we go off to Germany.
Yeah.
And then we go off to Ireland.
So you finish in Ireland. Nice. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, that sounds very good.
What about you?
So obviously start of term and all that normal stuff. But I did a really amazing gig this weekend, the weekend that's just passed. No, this was for Liberty's mother. So this is a really intense gig, I think is the best way to describe this. So for those of you who don't know, Liberty's mother is the artist name for a friend of ours called Sophie, who lost her child, would have been 13 years ago, something like that. And she has done a huge amount of work for a charity called Tommy's, which is about baby loss and things like that. And she's done some amazing work. She's spoken in Parliament, which is obviously the UK government, to help raise awareness to affect legislation. You know, it's just been the most amazing, inspiring story. And Liberty's mother so Liberty was her daughter, who she lost. And Liberty's mother is songs that she wrote about that experience. So I look after that project for her, and we don't do loads of gigs a year, but we do a few, but they are always at Tommy's events. So nearly every single person there has experienced baby loss.
Wow.
And it's really, I posted up on Instagram of the night because it was so intense, the feeling I got. So we were doing this thing called Walk for Hope, which was basically a charity fundraising event that Tommy's had just started in Battersea Park, and you just walk around to raise money. Rather than running, it's a bit less intense than that. It's like a walk. And because it was a new event, it brought a lot of new people, and usually new people are those who have very recently lost a baby. And it was just incredibly intense because obviously you can feel the grief is in the air. Like the air is just thick with emotion, and it's like, I'm not a parent myself, I haven't experienced that, but you don't need to feel how much emotion comes from that. So we were playing the gig, and so we were playing on this bandstand in the middle of Battersea Park, and there were lanterns all around which signified, you know, children that had been lost.
Jesus.
And it was, you know, when you're there and your audience is right in front of you, and there's probably, I don't know, about 200 people, something like that, and they're just all bawling. It's so intense, and I actually had to disconnect myself a little bit from it, because if I start to think about it too much, I go there. You know, I go there, and it's like. But what's amazing is, like, when we talk about music, it's usually with a very happy edge to it, right? Usually, you know, groove behind the boot. We don't really talk about dark things within music. We talk about obviously our mental health and stuff, but we don't really have dark music going on in our lives. And this isn't dark in terms of bad, but you suddenly realize how powerful music can be. So there's one song that she sings called Love You From Here, which is really the song that she wrote, almost like a letter to Liberty.
I've seen
that,
song,
and exactly. And
before.
I'm going to link Liberty's mother and all the stuff at the bottom, because, you know, it's really worth checking out. And that song, it just connects to people so deeply, and you haven't heard it before, most of them. As soon as the lyrics start settling into them, you just see they just go. And it's just, you just realize, you're like, it's almost like, and Sophie said this on Saturday night, she said it's like communion. Like, you know, I'm not religious, I don't have any sort of experience of going to church in that way, but it is like being in a religious ceremony. Like she's almost preaching there, singing the song and bringing people into it. And it was just amazing. And I mean, it was really, I carried with me for a few hours. When I drove home, I sort of phoned my partner, and I was just like, I feel really heavy. I feel exhausted from the emotion. But what an amazing thing to be a part of. It's so unique. Like, it's not a gig I can really describe to anyone, and it takes you to a different place as a musician. But I'm so grateful for that. But it just makes you think a lot about life, about death, about hope, about how to go on. And it's an amazing experience. I feel genuinely really privileged to be part of it. And, you know, to be part of people's journeys, because they are really sharing the most, probably the most sad thing that's ever happened to them. But they do it with such like conviction, and like the hope is really clear. Obviously some people are finding it very, very difficult, which is totally understandable, but the ones who have lost their children long ago and they keep coming back, they keep supporting, because obviously it's like a big family now. It's amazing to see those people talk about their stuff, and you know, it's just an amazing thing. So that was last weekend, so it was quite intense, but it reminded me of how incredible music can be.
It's beautiful that Soph entrusted that to you as well.
Yeah,
that's quite
I feel really
quite an honour, isn't it? Really,
yeah.
You know, the fact that she's, you know, something that's so dear to her and so precious to her, that she's just sort of, you know, giving it to you. That's kind of beautiful, really.
And it's, you know, MDing that project is not about. It's about the music, of course. It's about the music, but it's so less about the music. It's like these songs are not particularly complex or anything, you know, challenging in terms of technique, but you got to connect, but not too much. You can't lose yourself in there, because then you'll break down yourself. So it does require a different set of skills. But to be honest, songwriting, lyrics, connection, that's what I fell in love with a very long time ago, so I'm not really a stranger to those things. But it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
Wow.
And pretty intense. So 2 pretty big updates.
2 very different gigging weekends.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into it then. So, home studios, content creation.
What a topic.
Where should we begin?
So I mean, the thing that we wanted to touch on today is, you know, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, is that it's more and more of a thing now to have home setups, and obviously with the technology available and stuff, and myself and Ben had to get used to this and kind of get reasonably good at this pretty quickly, for the extra content that we give to our Patreons. So I was very lucky in lockdown to find a space, and you know, I'm not saying that this is accessible for everyone, because it's not, but I moved out of London and I moved back to my hometown Margate, and I was like, look, I need somewhere. I've got more and more equipment now. I need somewhere really just to store all my stuff. Yeah. So I was looking around like safe storage spaces and all this sort of stuff. And
Big
as soon as
all
those things. And as soon as I mentioned drums, they were like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, okay, because there's a lot of spaces in London where you can kind of go and you can rent shared spaces with drummers, or you can, you know, rent some of the safe store places. I had one with Johnny Brister a little while ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
So he had one in London. So I was like, yeah, maybe I can get one in Thanet. And everyone hated it. And then it was just by accident, there's this place called Boxed Up Storage, which is it's like I could walk to it in 5 minutes from my house. And I went down there and I walked in, and they've got these fishing containers, right? And they've been insulated, they've got lights, they've got power, they've got Wi-Fi, they've got all these things. And I was like, well, this is really cool. And there's you know, little things like there's a toilet you can use, you know, because obviously if you're there all day and stuff, there's a beautiful cafe down the road. And the guy used to play drums in the military.
Oh, nice.
And he was excited by the idea. And I was like, look, you know, could I sort of, you know, soundproof this and make it into a studio? And he was like, fill your boots. So I basically took over this place, and I spent all of lockdown soundproofing it, treating it, setting up lights, cameras, a mixing section, a storage unit. I put loads of shelves up. Like it's actually, I've put a lot of work into it. And that's where I do all the content now. And it's, you know, it's taken me about 2 or 3 years to get it to where I want it to be. Yeah. But that's my setup now. I'm very lucky, and I pay very little a month to have it. You know, some of the spaces in London are like £1,000 a month.
Ridiculous. Well, I mean, you know, when you used to share that space in Acton, you know, was Acton? It was Acton, wasn't it?
It was Acton, yeah.
Yeah. That was not cheap, and that was a long time ago. So that's awesome. So just you in the space?
And that's the beautiful thing. I've got it to a place now where I literally walk in, I plug my laptop in, everything turns on, and I press record. And I've got templates in Logic. I've got everything set up. Yeah. And I just go.
See, this is where
delicious.
I get very jealous. And also, this is where I've struggled the most. So you would think that bass, interface, cable, off you go, headphones, camera. And it is true. That is all it is. It's not like miking up a drum kit and, you've done such an amazing job because the drums sound amazing. I mean, I think anyone who's listened to the content will attest to that. The problem I have is that I don't have a space. So every time I want to make content, I have to set up the space. And I find that so draining because I use our spare bedroom, which is also the office. So because it's nice, it's got a nice sort of backdrop, and I've set the desk up and everything. But I have to set it up every time. I was weighing up those two things. I was like, should I just get a space? But then I'm paying money for it, and how much am I going to use? Like, it's that thing, right? So now I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm trying to find ways for it to get easier and easier. Definitely getting better. Like, I'm starting to see like the backdrops and stuff. Like, okay, so I've got that kind of aesthetic. I'll keep it like that. But for me, the biggest challenge is actually just physically being like, okay, let's set the cameras up. Let's get the lights up. I mean, that's like a 25, 30-minute job before you've even started recording. And obviously, sometimes you look and you're like, oh, it doesn't look like I want it to. And then you start recording and you're like, oh, I'm just thinking this isn't where it should be. So then you start getting in your own head. Then you start making mistakes. Then you realize you haven't put the second camera on. And you're like, oh my God, this is so frustrating. But I think I've learned a lot. Well, I definitely have learned a lot about content creation. And I think one of the things I've learned the most is that you have to be ready to get frustrated. You have to give yourself like so much permission. And I think like when you do content, just make sure you've really, really rehearsed it.
Yes.
And that's not just like the physical playing. I mean, talking it out, like pretending you are going to speak. And I've found this so many times where I've gone in and I've played and I'm like, yeah, this is sounding great. And I go to speak about it and I'm like, I know what I mean. I've got absolutely no idea how I'm supposed to communicate this to people. And it's different because in teaching, you can make a mistake, but you just carry on because it's live. You're in a room with someone. You can be like, no, sorry, guys, I didn't mean that. What I meant is this. On the camera, you're like, oh, okay, that's a cut there. Right, okay, so let's try and think about, what was I saying? Okay, right. But then you're in your own head, and then you get like the red light fever, right? Have you had that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and this is a shout out to anyone that creates content out there, because I think you'll agree to this, mate, but I've learnt in the last 2 years so much about it, and it's all been from me looking back at takes and being like, you're an idiot. You look so stupid. What the fuck are you talking about? And I think like totally. with creating content, there's so many things you have to think about, because for me, recording drums, like you can, if you're a drummer out there and stuff and you're thinking about doing this, you can create amazing content with one mic. Yeah. You don't have to have 10 mics and all this stuff. Obviously, I do that because I do remote recording and stuff, and it's something that I've wanted to do. But you could literally have a little interface with a kick drum mic and an overhead. You could have 2 mics, or you could just have a room mic, and you could still. There's guys out there that do amazing content. There's also a lot of drummers that use that the Yamaha EAD, I think it's called EAD. I think it's called that.
Is that the one that the Groove Father?
Yeah,
sounds amazing. I mean, yeah, he's
done
pretty well.
Mate, he's smashing. He's one of probably the biggest online creator there is for drums.
Probably is for drums, definitely. Yeah.
So you can do that. You haven't got to have that stuff. But one thing I think the best bit of advice I could give you is have a plan. Yeah. Because I actually have a whiteboard in my room, and I write out the plan. So it's like, turn on both cameras. Yes. Because I have an overhead shot now and a main shot for talking. Yeah. Make sure all the mics are in record in Logic, in Logic. Then I have like intro, playthrough 1, playthrough medium tempo, playthrough slow. I have all these things because otherwise you press play and you're like, "Hi guys, it's Jon from behind the beat, and I'm going to play something for you." so shit.
I know exactly what you mean.
And you know what? It's like when you go into now. Let's say I come up with a concept, so it's like playing, I don't know, a groove in 6/8 or a 16th note groove. Yeah. It's cool, I've got the concept. But then when you go into it, it's like, hey guys, so today we're going to get into this concept that I've created, and it's, I don't really know.
Totally. It's exactly it.
As soon as that red light goes on, it's just like, it's game over. So I I almost, I sometimes if I've got a bit of time, I actually do a little run through.
Yes.
And also the thing I think I've struggled with the most is thinking about the cuts.
Yes.
So when I first started doing it, I'd do something and I'd play through and I'd just go straight into, me talking about it. And then when I get back to the video, I'm like, I should have paused there because then the cut's not close enough. And there's all these things.
Totally.
And you felt that as well?
Totally. And then you go into like whatever editing software you're using and you're sat there going, so which of these two shitty frames am I going to have to accept that this is going to be the cut, right? Because you didn't get what you want. So now you're like, well, it's too late. I'm not going to set everything back up and go again. So you're like, okay, I'll go for this one. And then you try and sort of like, do a cross dissolve or something to try and hide it. But it's just the planning thing is so true. Do you script?
I don't script, but I know roughly what I want to say.
Do you mark in any way like prompts or anything in terms of like what you would speak, or is that just up here?
I think from the years of teaching I can roughly get by, but I might do a little reel at some point where it's me going from start to like or at least a few bits, because I'll say stuff like, hey guys, it's Jon from there you go there, and I'll be like fuck, I just get like when you're in the zone, I think sometimes if you start flowing, it's fine. But for me, it's starting.
Oh, it's the
Once
start.
I've started,
100%.
it's all right. But for the first bit, I'll do it, and I'll be like shit, and then just like it's tricky.
Saying hi guys, it's Ben from Behind the Beat sounds like the cringiest thing I have ever said, and I've said it so many times now. But I'm like, I hate my name. I hate the company name. Every time I say it, and I don't obviously hate either of those things, but I'm like, I think it's that being on thing, because some people can just walk into a room and turn it on straight away. That's just who their personality is. And I wouldn't say I'm not one of those people. I think I'm very sociable. Teaching and leading has given me loads of experience of meeting someone and being like, I think we're cool. We can have a vibe. But there's something about sitting there with two cameras pointed at you on your own, knowing that you're the only one who's running this show, that even just that, for me, it's the moment where you're recording, but then you have to start. So you're like...
So fucking true.
You're like... Hi guys, and you look, and it's that little movement towards the look at the lens, and it's so cringe. But like, once you're through that bit, it's like, oh, I'm in it now. But that's the moment. I tell you what, we should do is do a reel of just the first 5 seconds before speaking. Yeah, because that's the. But you see, like newsreaders doing that. They're like, and then they're like,
the arsonist had unshaped feet.
Exactly. The Human Torch was denied a bank loan. But it is, because you have to be like, and then on. No thought, you are switched on. And it's tough. It's really tough.
Do you do, maybe this is just me, but I think actually the podcast has helped with this, kind of just talking and trying to think about what you're saying. But I do this thing, if I'm having a really good take, I almost self-sabotage it towards the end. So like I'm playing through, and I'm like, this is going great. And then I make a mistake, and I'm just like, and I start thinking about you doing so well. Keep going. And then it just completely goes to shit towards the end. But I don't know. And do you know what I really struggle with? The sign-offs. So guys, that was a great lesson. And it's like, it sounds awful. It sounds awful.
Luckily, like, I think what we've done is, which is see you on the next session, which is our little sign-off line. You can just use that. And I mean, sometimes I say it and I'm like, afterwards. And sometimes I'm like, actually, that's great. That really just capped it off nicely.
So yeah, one of the things I really find as well is you've really got to be in the mood to want to create content. So you were saying when you kind of you've set up and it's taken a while to set up and stuff. Sometimes I picture myself and I'm like, I'm in a shipping container on my own with my drums and the camera's pointing at me and I'm talking to a camera.
It's really surreal.
It's like I'm not teaching to anyone. I'm talking to a Sony camera and a GoPro above my head. And it's like, this is really weird. Totally. And you've really got to like, I think the thing I've noticed most is when I watch back the footage, you've got to really turn it on.
Yeah.
Like you need to be animated and, guys, we're going to go over this today and this is going to be really cool and this is the concept and let's get in, hi.
Oh, it's not
today
gonna
we're going to look at
16th
notes and I love the drums and it's really fun.
Oh,
it's like you've got to be, I think when you think you're being animated, you've got to go even more.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
And there's loads of parallels to performance with that. So like we say this to students loads, but I've noticed it in professionals as well. Like some people just have no stage presence. Like they're great players and they're great people, but they're dull as pig shit to watch. And it's like, you got to make a decision there. Like, are you selling this? Do you care? Because it feels like you really hate your job right now. And like being on stage with you is like the worst day of your life. Like, I think, do you know what really helped me with this was teaching during lockdown, where you were basically sat in front of a screen for fucking hours a day and you just had avatars because no one turned their freaking camera on because they're like
in bed.
And you're sitting there going, I tell you what, I was so exhausted from teaching online that now I'm like, actually, it's not too bad. The thing about teaching online though is that it is live, so you can just make a mistake easy again. It's the do or die moment of capturing that really screws me up. And the other day, I did some content, and it was supposed to go up this month. And I went back in to edit it, and for some reason, I could not find the audio from the bass. And you just have to accept that it's gone. You can't find it. It's probably not been copied over properly, or I've deleted it by accident. So the other thing I would massively recommend to anyone doing content, because we haven't even spoken about editing yet. We'll talk about editing next, which is the absolute ball ache of life, but also the sweetest moments can be in the editing as well. But label your files and your folders. Massively. Because it is so frustrating when you come out and you're like 45, 66, 95, something, and you're like, what are these things? Put them into folders. Get some kind of system in terms of the footage from your camera, the audio from whatever instrument you're recording, and then put them in a folder so you can find them when you go to move into the editing part. The amount of times at start I just had them in the downloads folder and I was just like, I think this is it. And I know, very unlike me, right? But I think when you're under pressure, you just think, I haven't got time for folders. They will save you so much time. Yeah. There's also a couple of things I would definitely shout out, and we'll put them in the links below. But Think Media, which is a YouTube channel, they're amazing. I learn everything about my camera just from watching their videos. And they're things like learn it's the EOS, the Canon one that I've got, in 20 minutes. So you just watch 20 minutes and you're like, oh my God, I know how to use my camera now. And I know a little bit about aperture and I know a little bit about ISO and all of these things. Like, don't be afraid to resource yourself, because there are so many content creators out there for creating content. It's like content creators who show you how to create content. Do you remember when we were talking about TikTok?
Yeah.
Because Jon and I are in our sort of mid to late 30s. We're not a TikTok generation. We're picking up TikTok from the younger generation. And we were like, right, we're going to get into the duets thing.
Yes.
So there we were. We were like, how do you duet on TikTok? And we were watching some 15-year-old girl tell us how to do it. And that's amazing, because otherwise, how are you supposed to do it? She was amazing.
She was really good.
Really good videos, really good content. So you've got to resource yourself, but definitely don't go in cold. Don't think, I'll just figure it out, because you will get so frustrated in the beginning, right?
No, I think there's little things you can do as well to make your videos look really professional. And I think the thing that we paid some money for was our logo.
Yeah, 100%.
And all those little things that like the outro, the logo at the beginning, the outro logo. That makes a massive difference, because you can kind of you've got a start and an end already before you've even done the content. Yeah. And it looks really professional. If you look at any of the content creators that are doing it really well, they all have that little logo. And also, on our outro logo, we've got all of the socials so you can find us and stuff. And that, for me, makes you look like you've actually thought about it.
Yeah, totally.
There's some professionalism about you. You're not just doing it on your phone and, whatever. But then again, you can just do it on your phone as well. You can really do this at a massive sort of budget level.
Definitely.
But it's just a little bit of thought that goes into it that can then make it great. Little like clever cuts, and we'll talk about the editing now.
Yeah, definitely.
But that for me was a game changer. Having the behind the beat logo at the beginning and the end, it makes it look, and the little fade into the content.
Yeah.
A little bit of music behind.
Yes, that was
talking.
Something you spoke about the other day.
Yeah.
So like, if you ever look at John and my WhatsApp, it's just voice notes after voice notes going, I've just had this thought about this, and like when you were like, mate, I think I've just found something really cool. Like when I was talking over this last video, I put this little bit of music and I checked it out. I was like, oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's, you don't really know what the music is, but it's atmosphere, right? It creates atmosphere. And you can just get those for free. You can just download some tracks, from one of the sharing things, stock music, put it in there. And it makes a huge difference. I think you're right. I think the production quality is so important. And it's little things. It's like intros, outros, logos, music. And then you can now get into like color grading and some of the geekier stuff. So you're a Final Cut person.
Yeah.
I'm a Premiere Pro. Although, I'll be honest with you, the only reason I use Premiere Pro is because I've got the Adobe Suite. I would like to use Final Cut because it feels to me a lot easier. Premiere Pro is quite intense. If like the first time I opened it, I was like, where's the video go?
I know.
Because you're just looking at all these windows and you're like, this is so intense. So again, I went on a YouTube channel, Premiere Pro for idiots, Premiere Pro for beginners, and I just watched the basics. And there is, I can't remember, I'll find the link and I'll put it in the show notes, but there's ones at 15 minutes, know the basics of Premiere Pro. And I watched that and I was like, that was amazing.
Yeah.
That has just given me all the basics I need. And then from there, I've started to experiment. But to be honest, what I edit is not that complicated, but it needs to just be really precise and really simple for me. Because you could edit for hours. Mm-hmm. You could take a 15-minute video and edit for 4 hours. Mm-hmm. Do you find that when you're editing that time just goes?
Yeah,
so weird.
I really love the editing process.
I've got to love it more now, yeah.
Like once you've got the content, you've got the audio, and you drop it all in, then you kind of start to see it come together. Cool. I love it. And so I would say, if you're looking to get into it, Final Cut, if you get Final Cut, it's just a one-off fee.
Yeah.
So you buy the program, you own it. With Premiere Pro, you pay a monthly subscription.
Yeah,
right?
I have an Adobe Suite,
cool.
so yeah, exactly. I pay the monthly.
So that's the difference. I did say, so Charlie, who does all of our content, I did ask him about this, and he was saying that he feels like Final Cut is it's easier to kind of get to know it quicker.
Yeah.
But,
totally.
He uses Premiere Pro, so maybe...
I thought he used Final Cut. I didn't realise that.
So maybe for a more professional, maybe Premiere Pro is better. I just find Final Cut... I just started to use it in lockdown.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing. I went to YouTube and was like, how do you do this? What are the shortcuts for this?
Totally.
How do you color grade? And there's just someone doing it. And it's a step-by-step, guided experience all the way through. So I would say, if you want to do it, there's no excuse really not to. There is literally a tutorial video out there for everything. How do you open Final Cut?
Yeah.
Click on it.
Yeah, no, totally.
There'll be a video
for that. 100%.
How do you download the driver? There will be a video for that.
Yeah.
Where do you download Final Cut? There's literally videos out there for everything.
Yeah, definitely. And what have been your biggest challenges in editing?
I think, do you know what? So I learnt this the other day. So because let me get this right. Because my Sony camera is English.
Oh God, I know what you're going to say.
I record in 25 frames per second.
Yeah.
But because my GoPro is American, it's recorded in 24 frames per second. Yeah. So when you drop the clips into Final Cut, one of them is slightly longer than the other one. Yeah. So what you need to do, and I find that my Sony camera syncs up with Logic.
Right.
So the audio file perfectly.
Yeah.
The GoPro doesn't. So I can't remember if it's either I have to speed it up or slow it down, but I have to speed it up or slow it down by a certain percentage for it to link up.
Makes
sense.
And
I didn't know that. And that is because of the voltage of the lights.
That's
right?
it,
so you get this like weird flicker of the lights for American voltage and English.
different voltage, different electricity.
Which is mental, but I didn't know that. So when I first dropped my footage in, I was like, I'm an idiot, I've done something wrong.
Yeah.
And Charlie, bless him, I love you, mate. He's just been there every step of the way. I'm like, dude, why is it doing this? I've sent him so many voice notes. He's like, it's because of this, you need to do this and this. But it is like there's little things like that can stop you. I mean, it stopped me. My first ever one I did with 2 cameras, I think it took me 6 or 7 hours to figure that out. And I was just sitting there going,
why
has it got to be so difficult?
And it's so punishing. You're like, I don't want to do this. I've spent 7 hours and I've not done anything yet. It's
and
so
like
punishing.
little things now when I go in, I do 3 big clicks.
Yeah, me too. I do.
So I sit there,
clap. So I clap on the. I realise that if I clap, that's fine. But if I just hit the bass, I've also got the signal from the bass, and it's so loud it gets picked up on the mic. So I've got almost like a clap within the bass and the camera footage.
That's
so
cool.
I don't have to align them.
Yeah.
Well, I do, but I just have to align them to that one thing, which is really nice.
And I just get my sticks, and in the air, I go 1, 2,
nice.
3 to the overheads,
yeah.
and then I can see the waveform in Logic when I bounce the audio file down, and also on the camera audio.
Of course, because it's picked up. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because if you think about, I don't know, when we were students, so, 15 years ago or whatever it was, you would never be creating content on your own. Like, if you would, you were one of the few people.
Yes,
it was so rare that people would do that. And you'd have to pay someone. You'd have to pay a videographer to come and do that for you. And, of course, now, well, look, how would you start a video radio show 25 years ago? You couldn't unless you were hired to do that. And now we're sat here doing our own podcast and all this stuff. And anyone can do this. But put the work in. Like, well, ask yourself this question. Am I up for getting really frustrated? Because if the answer is no, put the work in, because there's so much information out there. And like, we are not saying we are experts at all. Once we've pressed stop on today, we'll talk about 50 things we could do better. But just know the basics and set yourself up for success. Yeah. And I think it depends on what you're doing as well. It's a bit different for us because it's part of a product that we are offering and selling. So we're really proud of what we do. We want it to be good for our patrons. We really respect and are so grateful for their support. If you're just doing this for yourself, you can lower the bar a little bit and be a bit more generous with yourself. Think, okay, well, let me get used to that. Like, do some basic stuff that helps you to start learning first. But don't feel the pressure to just put stuff out if you're not happy with it, because that feeling of watching something back going, this is not good.
Yeah.
That's a horrible feeling. That was a bit of a tangent. But editing-wise, back to editing, what other things would you take away from your editing process?
So I would say one of the big things that I've learnt over this whole process is lighting.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So we have literally behind these cameras now, we have photography lights. And the one thing I would say is they're not expensive at all. You can get some on Amazon for like
70 quid or something.
Something like that. You can get, I think you can get like 2 for like 70 quid.
That's the ones I got. Like, I think they're about 70 quid for 2 of them. Again, I'll link them down in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely. There's loads out there, but I would say that the biggest thing that I've kind of learned is work on where you position your lights.
Yeah.
And also how sort of intense they are or whatever. Every room's going to be different, but they make such a difference in the editing process. Yeah. And like Charlie's been amazing with that. Think about the best photos you've ever taken. It's usually with really natural, good lighting.
Yeah, totally.
If you're in the sun, but not too much sun, so it's overexposed. But I would say lighting is key, because it kind of frames the shot. It makes everything look nice and crisp. And
totally.
So like I would say, if you were going to do, let's say you want to get into editing content, and let's say you're a singer, you could do it on such a budget. You could buy a couple of lights, or maybe even just one if you're in a small room.
Yeah.
Get a DAW, so like Logic or something like that. Get a mic and an interface, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
And then if you want to do educational content, think about getting logos at either end of your edits, and also think about your content as well, like an intro. How are you going to have a theme? So is it going to be every video? Is it going to be, hi, I'm blah blah blah, and today we're looking at this? What's your unique selling point? Like, what is your brand? And I think we've started to do that. See you on the next session is something that's come into our content quite a lot. And also, we say, hi, it's Jon from Behind the Beat here, or hi, it's Ben from Behind the Beat here. And we've made it look, the way we wanted to with our branding.
It's got identity.
Identity, definitely. But I think for me, lighting is key.
Lighting is Yeah, I totally agree with that. Lighting, I can't really think of anything better than lighting. I think it's so important. I think the other thing as well, like I was listening to another podcast on leadership about things being ready, basically prototyping things in business.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, and this really stuck with me. If you wait for things to be ready, it's been too late. Don't be afraid to prototype stuff. So like this podcast is a great example. Season 1, we were not videoing. We were just doing audio. And it was really cool. We really loved it. We had loads of fun. Now we moved to video. Anyone who's watched episode 1 will be like, well, that's a different shot that they did in episode 1, because we're constantly okay with just being like, well, we could make this a bit better. Let's just prototype a bit and let's see what happens. And actually, don't be afraid, though, to just kind of get stuff out if you're happy with it, and then look back and go, next time I could improve that. Depending on the context. Unless you're obviously, if you're selling something, you've got to be happy to sell it to someone. It's got to be worth their money. It's fair enough. There's got to be some, value there. But like, I see the students all the time sort of like putting up videos, and some of them are awful. Like they're just not fit for purpose. It's like, what? Ask yourself like what you're trying to do. You're trying to sort of advertise what you're doing, but you haven't considered anything in terms of, no one knows what you look like because you put your face out of shot. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, think about what you want to do, but then prototype it up. So like, try something, get some feedback, put it out there, but don't wait for it to be perfect, because that will basically stop you from releasing anything. Yeah. But it's like the basic quality level needs to be there. And you should benchmark it against people you like and think, well, okay, let's say, we took a lot of inspiration from Mike and Eddie, and obviously Scott's bass lessons and Drumeo and things like that. Now, we don't have their spends, so there's no way we're going to create content at that level, because it costs a huge amount of money. Yeah, we don't have people employed to do this for us. We're doing it ourselves. But we can go, oh, I like what they did there. We can bring that down a little bit. Or I like that vibe. Let's try and bring that. Like, you can constantly be inspired without having the money. And I think that's the thing. Like, what you do have to do if you don't have the money is the research. That's where the work comes in. You can't just go, oh, I haven't got money, I haven't got the money, so I'm going to do crap content. It's like, no, but go and look how you can make it better for free.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, lights obviously is different. You do have to invest sometimes in gear. But little things like background, what is in my shot? What am I wearing? Are my clothes on my bed? I remember when I was doing videos during lockdown, I did one every week. It was really fun, actually. It really was something to focus on for me those weeks, because they were so tough. And I remember doing a video and I was really happy with it. And my girlfriend saw it. She was like, you've left the washing in the background. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
A bit pizza there.
It's got this like washing line with like my pants on there. And I was like, I didn't even think, because I was just thinking, bass looks great, sounds great. This is awesome. Yep. I never considered the background. So think about things that you can change for free. And then when you're ready, invest money. Yes. I don't think you have to start with loads of money. Obviously, you have to have a camera, but most people can do it on their phone. Lights are probably the only essential thing, unless you've got good natural light, or maybe you film at a certain time of the day where you use the natural light in your room for free.
Yeah.
Just consider those things. I think that's one of the things I've learned from doing this the most. And now I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I think do your research. I think, like you say, it hasn't got to be a crazy budget, but there are a lot of people doing content out there very well.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want this to be something that, is part of your, I suppose, income, or if you want to make money from it, there's people out there that are doing it incredibly well, an incredibly high standard as well. So it's like,
and consistently,
like you say, you haven't got to spend thousands and millions of pounds worth of, but it is worth doing the research. And it's like, go to the content, go to the guys that you like, and why do you like their videos? What is it that they do well? And then, that's what we did. We took certain things. I was like, I like that angle. I like the way they've lit that. I like their cuts. I like where the camera is in the room. I like, how they deliver their content. And that stuff is free, because you can literally just go onto YouTube and research it. So,
totally.
And I say with this stuff, just be prepared to be constantly learning. And also have days where you've done the best take ever and you get to the camera and you haven't pressed record.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've done that so many times, and it's the worst thing ever. And you almost want to give it all up.
You do. You're like, do you know what?
In that moment,
I'm out. And I think there's a parallel to draw there as a kind of a closing thought for me. being a musician and being like developing your musicianship is exactly the same as developing your content.
Agreed.
You have to be ready to get it wrong. Some days you're gonna have good days and bad days. Do your research. Like, they're the same thing. And I think that's one of the things that I love about what we do, but it's also so difficult. I constantly feel we're learning, which is great, but I constantly feel we're learning, which is like,
yeah, I know.
oh my God, can't we just
so
get
good.
it? Can't we just enjoy it for a second? But saying that, when it's right,
yes,
it is just the most beautiful feeling when you're left with something you go, do you know what? I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of that. So that's my takeaway, is like, just lean into that journey, take the learning, but also just be prepared for frustration. Give yourself a break, because it's not always going to go well. So that's it. That's my takeaway. What about you?
Yeah, I think just give yourself permission to, I suppose you've got to be patient. I think, and just with the content, like, it can be frustrating, but I think, like you said, it's when I get to the end of the video and I've put all this effort in, I've edited it and stuff, and it's taken hours. When you finally watch it back, you're like, oh, this is really cool, and I get a real sense of pride from it. I think the years of putting in the work do pay off. It's like your instrument, isn't it? If you think about your instrument, you spent years and years learning your instrument, and then we want to be good at video editing in 2 seconds. Yeah. It's like, it's actually kind of disrespectful to the people that do it for a job, right?
Totally, that's such a good point.
And it's like, it's almost like starting again. And I think you're never going to be good straight away. I want to see what Charlie does. It's mental. So, oh my God, yeah. I think just be patient, constantly learn, do your research, and I think it's you can be really proud when you get to the end of that edit and it's actually worked out and stuff. And I really enjoy it when I'm in the right mood. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great place to leave it. Guys, we'll see you on episode 3. Take care.
Peace.
Bye.